Roger that.
No.
Roger that.
And on that note, I want to welcome everybody to the world according to that man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. And I want to welcome everybody in the chat to our Saturday night special of the world according to Benjamin Jeremy Stein. We are joined tonight by the most complex human west of the Rockies, Gary, the SimpleLifeNow.com founder. Collins, good to see you, Gary.
I made it.
You made it minus all your Rush paraphernalia. I'm a little disappointed.
I know. I was in a hurry.
And no excuses. And of course, Ben Stein, who never forgets his paraphernalia, from his ties to his Nixon ties to his Yale ties. But of course, most importantly, he's a statistician. He's a mathematician. He's a mastatician. He's a provocateur,
Sure.
Saint Sinner, lover, father,
Comedian.
Comedian.
What do you mean?
Icon, iconoclast. But most importantly, fingers that could save the universe. Dr. Benjamin Jeremy Stein.
If every man in the world knew what I can do with these fingers, this would be a much more peaceful world.
That's okay. I don't know where to go from that, but I want the show to be tonight a little fun, we have quite a few segments. I'm very glad for Ben's son, Tommy, because I thought they were calling the new strand of COVID the Lambada. And it just goes to show you I need reading glasses, but it's actually called Lambda, Ben Stein. And I thought of Lambda from Revenge of the Nerds. And
I wonder what, do we have any experts on virology watching? Does anyone know if there's any limit to how many different strains of the virus there can be?
Or every month, Ben, it's like the flu. There's probably 100 different
I think way more.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's a virus. There are probably thousands of different strains of virus, shockingly. But I wanted to go right off the bat into two different people in history. One being William Miller, who constantly claimed that Jesus was coming. And every week,
you mean G. William Miller, the man who ran for vice president with Goldwater?
No, I'm talking about the head of the Seventh-day Adventist.
Oh.
And every week he would, or once every blue moon, he would claim that Jesus was coming, and more people would follow, and Jesus was coming, and Jesus was coming, and never materialized, but a religion was built out of it.
I disagree. I mean, how do you know that Jesus?
Okay, I'm going by the visual shot. But then, on the other hand, and a religion was spawned from it. But then, on the other hand, you have a person like Harold Camping, who is a very famous broadcaster, a Christian broadcaster, who for years kept on saying the world was coming to an end, and through this, he raised millions of dollars. He was and I look at that, and I look at these two people, and I say, Fauci, who's constantly screaming pretty much, Ben Stein, the end of the world is coming with this virus. Will he end up having a religion of people that believe him, or will he be a defrocked person who goes into obscurity?
I would say some of both. They'll just keep on appearing on talk shows, keep on occasionally giving speeches. He'll write a couple books. He'll go on. Life goes on. That's the amazing thing about life. It goes on until it stops, and his life will go on. He's had his 30, 40, 50, 80, 100,000 moments of fame. He's in there now. He can't be gotten out. You couldn't pry him out of there with a hand of grenade.
Well, I'm not asking if you could pry him out, but eventually will people stop showing up for church? So
No. Church is way too important and too strong a pull in people's lives for people to stop showing up at it. Church is incredibly.
No, I'm not. No, I meant metaphorically speaking. Will people stop showing up to Fauci's church?
I think some will and some won't. I mean, this idea of the end of the world is a very, very appealing idea. It means, for one thing, you don't have to pay your taxes. It means, for another thing, you don't have to worry about your neighbors' dogs are waking you up too early. It's the idea that the world is coming to an end has a certain amount of appeal. I mean, you and I, Judah, have very serious stomach problems early in the morning. And if we didn't have, if the end of the world came, no visits to the toilet.
Just gotta wear a diaper. Gotta
No,
go on the run with the diaper.
I have a terrible feeling if the end of the world came, we'd be alive with our stomach problems. But,
Wait,
but-
hold
but
on.
Gar-
What's
but
a stomach problem thing? Where did all this come
It-
from?
it's called
Oh, never mind.
it's called Judaism. But Gary, Lambda. I think the Revenge of the Nerds. I think Revenge of Fauci. This is. I said it. I was jokingly saying it few weeks ago. What are they going to call it next? The U.S. Air variant.
So are you
And
serious? It's a Lambda variant? I thought it was Delta Plus. Now
No,
we're
it's
already to
called-
Lambda?
Delta Plus? Don't tell me it's Delta Plus, for God's sake.
I thought I
Not-
heard that something
Not
this
Delta
week.
Plus,
I
for God's sake. That's the
I don't
end
pay
of
attention.
everything. It was Delta Plus. You can't mean it's Delta Plus. Gary, please don't say it's Delta Plus. That means that's the end. Oh my
I know.
God.
it's moved
Oh my God. Delta
as
Plus.
Gary, as Ben's son
Tell me
pointed
your
out.
allowance stops now. If it's Delta Plus, no, you don't need an allowance anymore.
Gary, as Ben's son pointed out, they're moving down the Greek alphabet, but it is called Lambda. I'm sure next it'll be something else. But Gary, when
didn't even know. I'm outside for one day and there's already 3 different variants and you got to get 4 more booster shots. You can't keep up with it.
I can't keep up with any of it. I can't keep up with any of it at all. The only thing I can keep up with is I have a very handsome son. I have a very, very wonderful wifey. I have a very, very nice sister, but she wouldn't watch the show if you gave her $1 million. To her, $1 million would mean nothing anyway. So I don't know what to make of any of it, except if it is Lambda Plus, kiss your ass goodbye.
It's over. You're gonna be dead in 30 seconds, and you're going to pass it on to like 3 million people.
And Tommy Stein, who is helping in a big way with the audio, can bear me out on this. This is the equivalent of pressing the history erase button. You do not want to do it. If we really are at the stage of Delta Plus, we have pressed the history erase button.
Who knows? I could have actually dreamt that. I don't know. I thought I heard something.
I think this is the history erase button.
Delta Square, or with the Lambda thing, it's going to become known as Tri-Lambda from Revenge of the Nerds. That's how bad it'll be. It'll be Tri-Lambda. But Ben, it's the doomsday people have constantly been proven wrong. But when it comes to people on the left,
not with Lambda Plus.
But Ben, the biggest provocateurs of in recent history of the world coming to an end, with Al Gore, with the climate change, with all this stuff. We have 12 years to save the planet. We have 14 years to save the planet. The time clock, Ben, with this new Delta and Lambda is really getting closer to the clock ticking down.
This is just ridiculous for me to even be bothering to make the incredibly delicious Schooner Bay salmon that I was planning to make for my wife and her nurse. There's no point in it. Well, I'll make it, and maybe some creature from outer space will eat it, but there's going to be some very empty Lambda Plus salmon fillet steaks.
And the next thing I wanted to get to
you had to tell me, Tommy can bear me out on this about the Lambda Plus. Right, Tommy knows the answer. Could be something good, could be something bad.
What are you, Joe Biden now? 360 million people have been vaccinated.
Could be good, could be something bad.
So I wanted to get to the next thing, which is Joe Biden. I mean, it's not just the nighttime anymore where his memory is shot to shit, excuse my language, or his brain's malfunctioning. It's the daytime now too, Ben. And the fact that Republicans, I'll take a person like I could deal with Kamala Harris in the sense her popularity is so low that nobody will be listening, nothing will get set, and nothing will get. I think it's time. They did a cognition test on Trump fairly quickly. I think it's time we cognition Biden.
Why with Lambda Plus? Are you kidding? Are you kidding?
Yeah, there's no time. There's no time.
Quiet, quiet, Gary. There's no time for that now.
Oh my God. You know what
Get
though?
me my gun, Jeff.
What is Kamala Harris doing? I don't even know what she's
Um,
doing. Is she even around?
Yeah, they're having meetings about her, but that she doesn't attend,
Oh,
where they're
perfect.
discussing why she's so disliked and trying to figure out how she could become how she could become likable. But
She
Ben,
should
I
be
mean,
more like my wife. My wife is a very likable person.
very much so. But Ben, in all seriousness, there is no end in sight, and it's going to come to the point where we as Americans, where we have to say, you know what, they don't know what they're talking about. This is all one big crapshoot. Moderna and Pfizer are making, I mean, billions of dollars. I mean, $34 billion this or quarter or a year or whatever it is they're reporting. At a certain point, we as Americans, you and I had really bad reactions. I don't think I'm game for a third shot. And we're really going to have to start asking ourselves, when's enough enough?
Well, I think we Americans are going to have to say, was the whole thing a fraud? I mean, I have to ask a friend, a very, very smart friend named Nolan Rappaport, who follows statistics very well, points out that according to some people, more have died now from corona than were killed in all of World War II. All Americans were killed in World War II. Is that possible? Apparently it is. And yet, I mean, this is how bad it is. And yet we don't know for sure whether it even exists.
Well,
And yet,
last year there was only 638 cases of the flu, Ben.
so
How's that possible? Yeah, I think it was, they only had documented.
My father, God rest his soul, a real genius, used to say, and it's true, their statistics, figures don't lie, but liars figure. And there's a lot to that.
No, there's a lot to be said, because we haven't had any real data. The only data we know, there's zero data on this. We've discussed this on the show before. We're constantly being, told, a quarter of Americans reportedly are not going to take the vaccination. They're quite possibly losing their jobs, quite possibly being shamed to death, quite possibly all these things, Ben, on the unknown.
On the unknown, and also on the unknown, unquantifiable, so much that we don't know, and yet amazingly, the leftists say that we conservatives operate on a climate of fear, but the whole Democratic Party and the whole Democratic regime is one big fog of fear. Yes, obviously there's some kind of disease. I don't think we would have all these doctors saying that there was this disease if there was no kind of disease. But what is it? Where did it come from? When is it going to go away? If it's not from China, where is it from?
No, the new variant, because it mutated in India, Ben, came from China. But every country is going to have their own mutations. The Americans will, our version will have a mutation and go to somewhere else. I mean,
so are you telling me that there's not a black mutation?
No, it has to be.
So there we have. Now we have the new racist explanation that everyone can do it, but only black people cannot do it, and that's so. Again, insult upon insult heaped upon the black population of America. Now they're saying blacks can't come up with their own variant of the coronavirus. Is there no end to the insults that black people are forced to labor under?
It's just viral racism. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, it's just shameful.
Yeah, you can't stop
And
it.
on that note, if you just tuned in, you are listening to the Saturday Night Special of the world, according to that man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. And we are being a little flippant with the COVID because they are being flippant.
We don't know what to do. What the hell are we supposed to do?
And they are being
Delta Plus. We might as well just put our heads in a bucket of sand and blow our brains out.
And they are being flippant with us. So this is flippancy back at them. I want to remind everybody you can get our emails at benstein.substack.com, but also keep downloading that show. It's grateful and helpful. Please keep giving us those great reviews. We're joined tonight from thesimplelifenow.com and other amazing podcasts, Gary Collins, and of course, America's humble servant, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. I wanted to share a little story that happened to me yesterday. I shared this with Ben. I was at Pavilion, the pharmacy in the morning, Gary, and I was, and this applies to you because you've changed throughout through the show where you've become more vocal. And I was talking to a person, and he was about to get vaccinated, and he was like just he was like out loud complaining about the vax. And he was saying, I can't believe I have to do this. And, he was going off after like Fauci. And I was like, this is West Hollywood. Probably, Ben, it's safe to say 90% one of the most liberally gay supermarkets. And him and I just had this amazing discussion where, he's just praying. And I said, you're the exception to the rule. And he said, I'm not flamboyant, whatever he said. And he's like, I just want to get Trump back in. And he's like screaming this through the store. And that was my experience in the morning, Ben. And I was talking to you on the phone about the fact that we really need to, you constantly are bringing up what conservatives have to do. And we need
a program. We need a program.
Right. What's their program? And one of the biggest things we've discussed is really opening the tent and getting people out of the closet, because it's time that, like I was talking about before, conservatives really have to speak up, and they have to say, like, those parades that were the Trump rallies that were going through your neighborhood. We really need to start getting louder.
Say it loud. I'm black. I'm gay. I'm Lambda Delta variant, and I'm proud.
Thank you for that. That was very helpful. But how do people get loud? I mean, you've gotten loud, and it's hurt your career in many ways. How do we walk through?
It's also helped my career,
but it's also helped your career in many ways. But most people don't see the silver lining in coming out of the conservative closet.
But I do see the silver lining because it's telling the truth. There's some value in telling the truth. As Richard Nixon, my idol, said at a meeting I actually attended, honesty may not be the best policy, but it's worth trying every so often.
And Gary, the reason I brought you up was because as times have come and times have passed, you've started leaning and being more honest about going more to the right, obviously. And
well, I have Democrats to thank for that. Honestly, I've said it that Democrats, I do not like Republicans, but I like them more and more every day because of Democrats. They've made their agenda clear. And I usually, stay middle of the road. I've got people who lean left who follow me, people who lean right, but I think most of them lean more right, middle right. But I'm at a point where, this group of Democrats, especially the mafia, or as they call themselves, the squad of idiots, they're pushing everything so drastically left. And then they're dragging the rest of the left with them. Then I'm like, I don't recognize this political party anymore because it's very un-American. To hate America, to call people racist for no reason, to promote socialism out in the open, and then not follow anything that you're preaching. I can't take it anymore. I can't take it.
And I can make it even simpler than that, Gary, a simple life, Colin. This is the greatest country there's ever been. By a long, long, long
Absolutely.
way. It's not even close. It's not even anybody close. And we have people who are the leaders of the main party in this country saying what a terrible country it is. And that to me is astoundingly horrible and just disgusting. This country is so unbelievably great. And my dear friend Judah over here keeps talking about this wonderful grocery store that he and I go to called pavilions,
Mhm.
and we go there a lot. And it's like heaven walking in there. Food, 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 bright lights, cheerful people,
Clean.
every kind of clean, every kind of food you can imagine. And people are complaining about that. Are they crazy? For all of humanity, the problem was shortness of food. Now we have more food than we know what to do with, and we're complaining about that. Are you crazy?
Well, that's a brilliant point. And to piggyback off something Gary shared the other night, which no offense, Ben, I thought was the most brilliant point of the week, which was when Gary brought up about the Olympics and how other countries are dreading having to go back to their homeland because they might get murdered. You know, if you're a professional Iranian athlete and you let a goal in, your hands might be, you know, we are we have American athletes that are railing against our country when almost every other country in the Olympics would kill to be able to come back to this country after the Olympics were over.
They would kill. People will risk their lives. They will do anything to come here. And we who are born here, we are so blessed. It's insane. Every night, Big Wifey and I watch Perry Mason. Big Wifey and I watch Perry Mason solve all kinds of complex crimes. He is opposed by Lieutenant Tragg and by Hamilton Berger, the incredibly funny prosecuting attorney. They're living in a paradise. It's paradise here in America. And we don't recognize it. We're too stupid to recognize it. It's paradise here. Get hip. And I say this as a person who has a lot of jeopardy in his life. A lot of things have gone wrong in my life lately, but I will tell you, I live in paradise.
To quote Meatloaf, I could see paradise by the dashboard light. You got to give the Meatloaf some credit sometimes, Gary, but you raised that great point, and I was actually talking to my mother about it because it was akin to Ben bringing up the other day about the media being the fourth branch of government. And I couldn't help but think when you said that, it really just stuck with me about it's as bad as stuff, you know, whatever people want to say. It's still, as Ben says, it's still the greatest.
People the greatest there's ever been. Look, we have freedom, we have dignity, we have incredible amounts of good food. We have everything that mankind has always wanted, and we are complaining about it all the time. Look, if the rest of the world were like America, there wouldn't have been any world wars. There wouldn't have been any nuclear holocaust.
So getting back to Biden the other day, this moron who said that this was worse than the Confederacy. January 6th. January 6th was worse. Biden. It was worse than the Confederacy because
incredible. Something on the order of 680,000 men died in the Civil War.
And do you want to know what his reasoning was, Ben? They didn't make it to the Capitol. They didn't make it to the Capitol.
What?
I swear to God, that's what he said. They didn't make it to the Capitol.
Many of the top officials of the Confederacy were senators and representatives in the Congress.
And this is
dumb can anyone be? I mean, this is incredible. This guy is president of the United States, and he doesn't know that many of the top officials of the Confederacy just recently came from being senators and congressmen. He's that dumb. That's
Ben,
incredible.
we need to get you a press pass because to be one of the pool reporters, because you see the problem is when people like him make comments, there is nobody to actually call them out on that stupid, idiotic comment because people don't know history, so they take it on face value what he said.
Well, that is scary, and I'll take my press pass. Unfortunately, as you know, boys and girls, although I do have a home in Washington, D.C., it's a small but very lovely home. I live mostly out here in Beverly Hills with my big wifey, and so I can't really be in Washington, D.C. much of the time. But yes, I would like to call them out. I mean, my God, because they didn't. What the hell did the demonstrators do in the Capitol? My God, more people died at the Battle of Antietam than were killed in 9/11. At the Battle of Antietam, which most Americans have never even heard of. In Antietam, Maryland, which is my home state, Maryland. That's a very, very beautiful state.
Well,
No,
most Americans, Ben, don't realize that more people were killed in this. Americans were killed in the Civil War than all the wars combined since then.
Absolutely,
And it was
absolutely.
brother on brother, father on
Absolutely.
son, cousin on
Absolutely.
cousin. It was people. That's the part I get really upset about is people just don't understand or even seek out history and understand where they came from. It's
My
more of, I'm here. What are you going to do for me? I'm a spoiled little bitch and I'm going to whine all the time. And if
my
you call
my
me out on it, I'm going to call you a racist.
my wifey, world's finest person, had relatives in the Civil War who died in large numbers.
Wow.
That family, her family, went on to fight in the First World War, Second World War, Vietnam, Korea. They're the finest people on the face of the earth. You're going to tell me these people are traitors, are vicious scum? These people are great Americans.
And that's the problem. I think we're at a point where reality doesn't matter anymore. It's this crazy agenda of, I think that I deserve free shit. I want to sit around and they don't understand history because they don't even know how socialism works. They're on the socialist team right now, but we all know once tyranny kicks in, they go after them too. They get their head lopped off just like the rest of us. And that's the part these idiots don't understand is the useful idiot. They don't get that.
They don't understand anything. Look, most Americans have no idea of the Revolutionary War. And people think in the Revolutionary War, a bunch of guys in wigs and jackets stood around signing some piece of paper, and that was the end of the Revolutionary War. No, entire communities were burned to the ground and massacred. It was a bloody, bloody war. And we got our freedom. We're the first country in the world to become a free democracy because of it, because of revolution.
Well, and that's why they're here.
And we're being yelled at.
Well, that's why they enjoy these freedoms. That's the part that baffles me to death. They enjoy the freedom from these wars, from these sacrifices, and they don't even understand them.
That's right.
And that's the part that drives me nuts. And what's her face? Bush, one of the squad, that idiot, where she said,
Cori Bush.
Yeah, you just need to suck it up. And I'm all, holy shit. She's just told all the people she represents, I don't give a shit if you get killed on the street. I'm getting rid of the police. Suck it up.
Suck this up.
I would be like, what? How do you vote for this person? How do you support this person? And exactly, Ben, they'd be better off.
You know what's funny, Ben? What he's referring to is she was on CBS the other morning and they interviewed her because she spends $70,000 for private security, yet she's the biggest advocate for defunding the police. And I got to give it to her because she's so dumb that but at least she was honest and said, suck it up. I don't care. You know, my life is on the line. And at least she, compared to everybody else, didn't try to deflect or didn't try to come up with an excuse. She simply said, you don't matter. I'm the only one that matters. And obviously she's crazy and delusional, but that's what he's referring to. She openly said this on CBS the other morning.
Now, is she an African-American freedom fighter?
Yes, she is.
Yes.
Well, considering the obvious way she's suffering, it's not surprising that she should have such an unusual point of view. I mean, I can hardly imagine the way she's suffering.
Tremendously, Ben. Tremendously.
You know, but Gary raises a point, and we've spoken about this before. You see here, and I was talking to this guy in the store about this the other day. We were talking about what should be obvious is no longer obvious, right?
Yeah,
and that's really the major issue that we have is. And I was talking to him. No matter how many conservative sites or conservative news organizations open up, Ben, it's always going to be 99% till the 1% of the information spreading. No matter how much you try to teach children, they're getting their history classes from history books that weren't written by conservatives. They're getting
your children well.
They weren't even written by historians.
Hell will slowly go by.
That's perfectly said. They weren't even written by historians. So they're getting this. They're being, indoctrinated, as we've discussed, But there is nowhere in so many ways, Ben. We beg. I mean, it's almost like the only way you could get news is, or any type of, is you really actively have to search. You have to be, like how it's commonplace now to say you have to be an advocate. You have to be your own advocate with health. You have to be your own advocate with history, Ben.
Yeah,
I agree entirely. And unfortunately, we don't have too many people who know enough history to be their own advocates. It's really terrifying. People have no idea. My God, I have a very close relative, a very intelligent woman, very rich, intelligent one. And she described America as this racist country. What is she talking about? She lives a life of incredible privilege as a Jew, and she considers America a racist country. What on earth? What the hell is going on here? And yet this woman is a saint.
Well, and this is very common. And I talk about this in my podcast a lot, of people who just need to shut the hell up because they don't know what they're talking about. And I say, if you don't know what you're talking about, just shut up. Just be quiet. We don't need to hear from you. I don't need your unsolicited opinion of stupidity. And that's the problem, is we're getting a lot of that today. And like the border is a famous one. I've lived in New Mexico, California. I've spent a lot of time in Texas and Arizona. I've lived there. I've been on the border. I work the border in law enforcement. I've had people who have never been to the border tell me exactly how the border works, how racist we are as a country. We're against brown people. And I'm like, you've never even lived near here. You've never been there. Yet you're espousing to me what the border, how it works and how it's supposed to work and how we should just let people in. It's like right now, a great majority, a lot of people coming across the border right now are COVID positive. That's a problem.
It's a real problem.
It's a huge problem.
And
no one cares.
And the ironic, as people keep pointing out, Ben, is that we're everybody's got to be in America, everybody's got to be vaccinated, but the people that are coming in illegally are allowed to come in unvaccinated and travel unvaccinated.
Oh no, they're flying them all over the country.
Their travel is paid for. And I think in some cases their schooling and their lodging is paid for. So we have a real serious case of national suicide going on right now, sponsored by Mr. Biden himself, a great Black freedom fighter.
Well, here's the problem I have with this. Biden, in the first 6 months of his presidency, has committed many acts that should get him impeached. And no one has done anything. The Republicans are spineless little wimps. Get on it. What they did, I said this when they were doing this with Obama. I was no fan of Obama. And I said, they kept talking about impeachment. I said, shut the hell up until you have some evidence and you're going to do it. Otherwise, shut up, because now you're going to start this pattern for every president from here on out. The opposition is going to threaten impeachment the entire presidency. And what happened? Exactly that. And now that Biden's in there and he should be impeached, he should be silence, pure silence.
Yeah, I mean, Ben, he brings up a great point. It's something we've discussed. It's something we've discussed. It's the spinelessness of the status quo. I mean, really, it's
terrifying. And yet, I want to go back to something I believe we have hit on this show, which is, yes, we are losing our freedoms, especially under the Bill of Rights. There's no doubt about that. But life day by day is great. I mean, you go to the pavilions.
For you. All right, so you always take yourself out of the equation.
Well, I will soon be broke. So that doesn't can't take myself out.
Because I'll go to the next story. But if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to That Man.
Go on to the next story.
Benjamin Jeremy. No, it has to do with that. Benjamin Jeremy Stein. And I want to remind everybody, please keep downloading those podcasts. Also, benstein.substack.com. We're joined tonight from the Simple Life co-founder, Nile.com co-founder Gary Collins, whose hair looks remarkable, even though he's minus his Rush paraphernalia. And of course, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. And I want to thank everybody that's in the chat. I am reading your comments. Ben, take a guess how many homeless people LA County has, if you had a guess.
10 million.
No, seriously.
I don't know.
It's 80,000. And Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva came out today, and I quote, "The homeless crisis is a problem we can solve if our elected leaders check their woke privilege at the door." Villanueva wrote on social media, and I want to give this guy Villanueva major kudos. He is a Democrat, and Ben, he's obviously on the streets and has people on the streets, and he good for Villanueva.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, the homeless are extremely visible because, well, we're in LA, we're in our cars all the time driving around, and we see the homeless people on the streets next to us, often pulling up next to us or walking up next to us at stoplights or stop signs. And so it is very disturbing to see that there's many homeless people. And I must say, tomorrow, I think BB, that's my wife, and I are probably going to go out to the beach and are going to, we will just go look at the ocean all day. And so we'll count how many homeless people we see, but there are way too many homeless people out there, and I don't know what we'd do if we saw one around our house. We don't have dogs anymore, but we have a lot of guns.
But getting back to it, Ben or Gary, there comes a point like you're talking about where people are tired. People are tired of being told, we have a recall election in California that's coming up very soon. Everybody should go donate to Larry Elder.
He's great.
Larry Elder's a great guy.
Yeah,
he's great.
Larry Elder's great, but people are really getting sick. And hopefully, we could get back to the old school way of politics, where you care about your state more than you do about your party. And
he is wonderful. He is one of the best people in political life in America right now, as good as anyone, maybe the best in political life.
And because Villanueva is a Democrat, and obviously he's taking a huge risk, Gary, by coming out. But what does he have to lose? The homeless epidemic in this city is insane. It's only getting worse. And he's been slandered by being called the Latino or the Democrat Trump.
I have a question. Can I get back up? Where the hell are all these people coming from? All these homeless people.
That's a good question, Ben. I had the same question. It was rattling around my brain at the same time as you said.
Okay, so where
you mean in California?
Anywhere. They're all over.
But here in Southern California, in particular, that we have on one of the major streets here, San Vicente Boulevard, we have a very beautiful Veterans Administration hospital complex. All on the fence, on the lawn inside the fence, there are homeless tents, lots and lots and lots of them, lots and lots and lots of them. They're scary homeless shelter tents, and poor homeless people have to either get the hell out of there or face living day by day with another homeless person's knife against your jugular vein. It's not a good thing to be near homeless and gambling.
But Gary, the homeless are coming to this place, or we have so much in California, as Ben always says, because California is great.
It's the greatest.
That's why we have so many. I mean, it's warm. The climate's I'm not trying to. In no way am I making fun of the homeless.
No, it's true. They go there because of the weather, and there's also a lot of benefits. Also California's been pretty progressive in social programs from the very get-go. I mean, and for me, but I travel all over as well, not as much east of the Mississippi anymore, but they're everywhere. I saw just a homeless camp in Tucson the other day that popped up out of nowhere in a residential neighborhood. My friend in California, Northern California, in a very uppity, not super uppity, but very upper middle class neighborhood, they've had homeless problems. I just don't know where they're coming from. I don't know what we should be doing about it, because problem with it, we were talking about it as a solution because someone asked me, what's the solution? I go, the statistics say a lot of these people don't want help. They don't want to be put into a program.
They will not take it.
They will not take it. They want to live the way they're living.
They're right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. It's crazy, but some people don't get to be homeless because they're sane. I mean, homeless people are homeless because they have some pretty serious mental illness problems. It's not as if they're being fired by General Motors or
no, but that could occasionally happen.
Give me a fucking break.
A lot of Ben, and I'm not using a huge percentage here, but there are many people that don't have family, family family to help them out. They don't have,
They can get jobs. There are a lot of jobs.
Yeah, now, Ben, but again,
Yes.
now there are sometimes, but people, that have gotten laid off from certain types of professions, they've lost it. Most people don't have, don't have backup money in America. I mean, they just don't. These are just facts.
I don't doubt it, but there are so many jobs going begging.
But then there's a big difference between getting laid off and when you're making $100,000 a year to having a job where you're making $15 or $20 an hour.
I understand that. If you have a couple, both of them can and should work, and they should live very, very modestly, and they should get a job. I mean, it is true. There are some young people who have mild mental problems and are not terribly bad mental problems, and they're a great joy to their parents, so they get to be supported. But there are so many who are just plain fucking crazy.
Yeah, no, Ben, I'm not. I agree with you. For the majority of the homeless are dealing with major psychological issues. Everyone, and we didn't set up this system for them. You've shared that you believe in the, in helping people out that need to be helped out. That's who I'm referring to. I'm referring to the people who have lost their jobs. For the people who need a little bit of a leg up from the government, almost all of us believe that they should get that extra leg. I don't know what the percentage of the homeless out here are absolutely flat out either mentally ill or on drugs or alcohol.
A very, very, very huge majority.
Yeah. And the next thing I wanted to talk about, because this was an interesting story from last week, was the Washington football team, which has changed their name. And I'm not normally, with changing it from the Redskins, I don't necessarily have a problem with that, Ben. I could see how some might get offended, even though
all those Indians in Washington, D.C.
And they have been speaking to Native Indian groups, Native American groups, and I'm guessing they're more like the J Street of Native America of the Indian groups, Ben. And for people that aren't familiar with what J Street is, and it's an extremely left-wing Jewish lobby who is unfortunately extremely dangerous. But Ben, Washington now, and I'm not kidding when I say this, whatever you want to call their football team, you are not allowed to walk in there with war paint, as they call it. You're not allowed to paint your face. You're not allowed to anything. They are trying to, you can't even, I mean, I'm being serious right now. You can't go to the game and have your face colored. You can't have any of that stuff because it is offensive somehow to the Indian, Native American population.
Oh, for fuck's sakes. You got to be kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding.
We have lost our minds. We have absolutely lost our minds. Don't you agree, Ben?
Absolutely.
Is that just pure insanity?
It's pure insanity, but we have the most pompous virtue signaling people in the world in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. And of course, they're going to act like jackasses. They are jackasses.
Well, and they're ruining sports for me. I used to be a big sports fan. I don't watch any pro sports. I've had it. I've stopped watching all of it. And I love college. If they start paying college athletes, so I'm out. I'm out. I could care less.
I think they are already paying college.
Oh, yeah. Now they are actually now, Gary, because now college athletes could, they could use their Instagram accounts and make money. So there are a lot of players that will be making about at least $1 million a year playing for these teams. But Ben, I go to it's if you could look back in time, when did we start allowing this very small minority, this tiny minority of our country, and I'm not referring to a minority, I'm talking about to this little minority, to give them so much power over the rest of us?
That is a very good question. And you might ask, why do we allow such a small minority in the government to have so much power over the rest of us. Why do we allow? I mean, I used to work at the Federal Trade Commission, and I was part of a team of 3 lawyers. Yours truly, a very, very, very super genius guy named Arthur, a very smart guy named Gail, and then later on, a very super smart guy named Ellis. We had incredible power. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. We might as well have been candy stripers. We might as well have been brownie scouts. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing. And yet, because of the way the law is written, we had tremendous power over people. That's the way it is. You have government. Government is a very scary thing.
Yeah, I mean, Reagan said it the best. I mean, it's I'm here from the we're here from the government. We're here to help. It's just by the way, there for people that don't know this, you could YouTube this. I beg you to YouTube this. It's really brilliant. It's Mo Roca, who's really talented from CBS Sunday Mornings, did a whole segment on Reagan's jokes and Reagan's one-liners, and he wrote them all himself, many of them himself, and he had them all on little note cards, Ben. They're all at the Reagan Library, and I just thought it was
that's a great library, by the way.
It's beautiful, but I got to be honest with you, I still love the Nixon Library more because
Library is the best
because it's quaint, and they didn't brush over history, and they did it beautifully.
It's a very good library.
Everybody should go to the Nixon Library. It is an absolutely outstanding place. If you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to that man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein, on a Saturday night special. And I want to thank everybody that's listening in the chat. I want to remind everybody to keep downloading those podcasts. Also go to simplelifenow.com, whose founder is Gary Collins, who's with us tonight, of course. And of course, go to spectator.org, read Ben's stuff. It's absolutely brilliant. I say that because he pays me to say that as many times as I can during the show. And yes, but I want to welcome everybody back, of course, to The World According to Ben Stein. It's Saturday night. And I want to circle back a little bit
Judah, I got a real quick question.
Yeah, please.
Are we allowed to call brownies anymore? Is that derogatory?
That's a good question.
No, it's funny he said. Yeah,
it is really funny because there is a store in Priest River, Idaho, that has the best brownies I have ever had. I was there, Mama Max, and I just brought back about 30 of them. And they've disappeared. I don't know where. They're in my kitchen. They've disappeared. And I don't know who took them, but we're going to find out. And when we do find out, they're going to be shot.
Well, what's curious about the question he just asked, because I was thinking about this with the Washington football team. Are we allowed to? Why shouldn't the Cowboys have to change their name? Because they're linked. Cowboys and Indians, Ben. There's a direct correlation. So I think the Dallas Cowboys. And then I was thinking, why not stop there? What about PETA? Why, the Dolphins? Dolphins have been encamped in zoos in aquariums across America. I think we should just have innocuous teams. Everybody should just be called New York. If there are 2 teams from New York, call them New York 1, New York 2.
That is racist.
And just drop everything. But this is what happens, though, and people have brought it up, Ben, when you have it too good. We just have it so damn good that you just find things to complain about.
I think what happens is we have a lot I would sort of go the other way. I think we have a lot of people who are very angry people. It's like what Bob Dylan said. There are a lot of people who have knives and forks. They don't have nothing on their plates, and they've got to cut something. And that, unfortunately, that something is the greatest country in the world, the United States of America, and they've got to cut something. Now, I look upon my wifey, the saint of saints, the living, breathing saint of saints, and she doesn't complain about America one bit, although she's been given some difficult problems to deal with in her life, including this big fat Jew you see right in front of you. And she just handles it and goes on with life the way she should, by just keeping her head down and doing what she's supposed to do. And this is how Americans are supposed to do things. No, not anymore. Complain, complain, complain.
Well, you know what, Ben? This is the freest country, and you have the freedom to leave. Stop your
not-
bitching.
I'm not
Leave.
leaving. Are you kidding?
Not
I'm
you,
leaving.
not you, them, the complainers. It's like, if you don't like it, just get on plane and get the hell out of here. No one's stopping you. And they'll complain about that.
Yep.
How
No,
dare
it's
you?
so funny you say that because there was a very lesson I learned early on in my sobriety when I didn't want to go somewhere. And somebody invited me to their house for the weekend, and I had no interest in going to somebody. As Ben knows, I hate hotels. Ben's
Really?
the only person I'll ever stay at any of overnight at any of his places. But and somebody said to me, because I didn't want to be, Gary, in somewhere for 25 hours. And my friend said, "How are you getting there?" And he said, "By car." I said, "By car." And he said, "Well, you could always leave." And it was one of the greatest lessons to me because and you're right, Ben. I mean, Ben, he really brings up. I mean,
Yes. People can leave. They don't want to leave. They want to complain. Complaining is itself our national sport. That's the amazing thing. You guys are athletes. Some of you are. I have some very, very good friends from law school, from college, who's a very good athlete. And even though he's an old guy like me, he knows the truth. America's national sport is not what we think it is: baseball, football, tennis. It's complaining, it's bitching and moaning. And that doesn't make any sense at all.
Okay, so Ben, let's go to the 60s. You guys actually complained about something and fought for and protested for something that was a real cause.
Yeah.
That was a real cause. It was the Vietnam War. It was a just cause to protest. It was a just cause. It was extremely important. And out of that came a lot of very important stuff, Ben. But sadly, I think a lot of that came out of that was complaining.
Yes, complaining for complaining's sake. And people learn that they could complain, and they would be considered heroes for complaining, not for accomplishing anything, but just for complaining. That's ridiculous. Complaining is not by itself a great accomplishment. Yes, it's brave sometimes to complain. Big Wifey and I lay down in the path of oncoming cars on K Street in Washington, D.C. to protest the war in Vietnam. Why? Because my wife's father had just gotten the Bronze Star and the Distinguished Service Medal, not the cross, the medal, for his incredible heroism in Vietnam. And he said, if I were a young person like you, I would be out there complaining too, because that war is just throwing away young people's lives on nothing. And so he said, please go out and demonstrate all you can. And he was totally right. We were still demonstrating a year later, but by then we had worn down the school. They gave up, and we didn't give up. They gave up filming.
And I got a question for you. So you've lived through a lot. You've seen a lot of different ebbs and flows of America.
Ben's rode hard.
Yeah, exactly. Ben's been there, done that. And how do we get back this pride of being an American? And that nationalism is not bad. That flag is not evil. How do we coalesce and come back together as a group of people and have pride in our country and pride in being better than everyone else and doing the right thing?
We have a saying in Alcoholics Anonymous: you cannot think your way into right acting. You can only act your way into right thinking. And so that means when I sing at the end of this show about how great America is, I want you all out there in America to join in and sing with me, and you on the show to join in and sing with me.
And by the way, somebody brought up in the chat, you can't put professional complainer as your job title, but you can put professional agitator as your
That's a very good point.
As your job title. That really does seem to be paying the bills quite well for many people in this country.
For Black Lives Matter in particular.
For people in Antifa, for anybody that George Soros deems worthy enough to give his funding to. And somebody also brought up the next name they're going to erase is the Kansas City Chiefs. Yes, you're completely right. Yeah. And here's my question, which I never understood. I do understand sort of with Redskins as sort of that being an offensive sort of a name. I'm not an idiot. I could see Redskin being
Wait a minute, who told you weren't an idiot?
See that what they should have done is they should change their name to the Washington Rednecks. That would have done it.
Yes, right, because the rednecks don't have their own moaning section. I did with the word. What's the word I'm looking for? But yeah, it's Ben. Agitating is a huge money making profession, and I get back to this. What we've discussed. If you erase history, didn't exist. And it's that's where we're at now, is the absolute erasing of our history. They are trying to take it down one team at a time. The Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, isn't it an honor to name your football team after somebody? I mean, I mean, Mike, have I lost my mind? Am I wrong on this one, Ben?
Well,
Isn't it at all?
There's a rank of chief in the U.S. Navy. So now do we have to get rid of rank of chief in the Navy?
Great point.
Right. That's a good point. Man, Jeff, come over here. Take a note of this. We should get rid of the professional complainers and tell the professional complainers, talk to Jeff. He's going to kick your ass.
If that ain't country, I'll kick your ass. But David Allan Coe, great country singer. But Ben, in Israel, they call it's the Maccabees, right? Because it's just such a great story. And I'm so curious as to who the word chief, and I'm being honest when I ask that question.
Ye call me chief, and ye do well to call me chief. You ever heard that? That is from it's called something to the Spartacus to the gladiators. Chief has meant leader and boss forever, even in Greek and Latin. So that's where that comes from. Ye call me chief, and ye do well to call me chief.
See, you're always learning something new here on The World According to Ben Stein. I did not know that. Did you, Gary?
No, I did not.
It's very famous. Excuse me, Oration, my father, God bless his soul, God rest his soul, had to earn money any way he could during the Great Depression to send himself to college. And he would enter oratorical contests where he would have to memorize very famous speeches and then recite them before a group of anti-Semites, most of whom would say, we'd rather give the money back to the Indians than do, not saying wrong with being Indian, than give it to this Jew. But anyway, he learned that he did Spartacus to the gladiators a great many times.
And Ben has had a very long day, so that's why he's a little tired.
Very long day, an incredibly long day, unbelievably long day.
You know what I was thinking about, though, as Tropic Thunder is one of our favorite movies. We need Les Grossman right now. We need like a Les Grossman on camera at the White House, going, "Where's the grip? Get me the grip.
Get me a key grip.
Here's the key grip."
Go over that director.
I don't want and
really fucking hard.
Yeah, I am going to shove a fist so far, and I don't want to say who that director is, but we are. I mean, and Trump was Les Grossman, and we really truly need Gary, that person, to get to. You ask how there's change. It's Les Grossman. It's the Trumps of the world. And and that's why they're still so stuck on him, because they know that he started something that's going to have a really hard time, Gary, being stopped, because Trump is still the only one that could command 35,000 people at an event and look at the media and say somebody smacked them without ever smacking them.
Yeah. Well, and it's time. It's definitely time. I think DeSantis is refreshing. And they just vilify the guy, but he just draws his line in the sand and says, "Go screw yourself. I don't need to do what you're telling me. I run the state, deal with it." And I like that, because we need more people like that. We need more leaders who are willing to do the right thing, even when it's uncomfortable and they're going to take heat for it. But it's still the right thing. That's the problem, is it's the right thing to do. Yeah, and you shouldn't be afraid to do that.
DeSantis has got a pair. It's great. We love him.
No, he is absolutely great. He follows the Trump playbook. The biggest question, Ben, is, and we've discussed this, if Nixon had the certain people behind him today, he never quits. Because if he had some of the people at Fox News, if he had, some of the conservative media sites that would never have allowed this to happen. But how big of a jackass, Ben, are these Republicans when Trump showed them the way? He showed them the way to freedom. And it's like, and it really is like so reminiscent of the story of Passover, right? The Jews are free, the Republicans are free, and they're some of them are hungry, and they say it was a little bit better over there. It was better being slaves than it is to be free. And Trump,
I am the way, the truth, and the light, and he that believeth in me shall not die. And that's the kind of attitude we're getting from DeSantis, and I think the kind of attitude we could get from Trump, whereas we have a little whining, puking baby named Biden.
Somebody wrote Les Newsom, Les Nessman, more Les Grossman. Remember Les Nessman? Wasn't he from WKRP in Cincinnati?
Love that show.
That was a great show. I love that show. I absolutely love that show. And I want to tell people there's a great documentary, Ben, out now. It is one of the hardest documentaries I've ever watched in my life. It's about one of my favorite actors named Val Kilmer. And it shows you the highs and lows of his career. And he's had 2 tracheotomies. So it's really hard to watch somebody that you saw up there. And but I tell you, it's really worth. And the way he talks about Hollywood, Ben, you would absolutely love. And I encourage everybody to watch that documentary, as much as I'm encouraging everybody to listen to Gary's podcast. And of course, Ben at spectator.org, and buying the new Killers album next week. We are out of time for the Saturday Night Special. I want to thank everybody that's been listening in the chat. I want to thank everybody that's going to be listening on the podcast. And I want to wish everybody a great weekend. Remember, benstein.substack.com, simplelifenow.com, spectator.org. Throw a few shekels their way. But also, I need to give Larry Klayman a plug, freedomwatchusa.org. We oftentimes complain and we oftentimes talk. Larry doesn't complain. He walks the walk and he talks the talk, and he is fighting the good fight for conservatives that are being persecuted right now.
And he sues.
And he sues. And it's extremely important. freedomwatchusa.org. I want to thank everybody again. Have a wonderful weekend. Ben Stein, will you please take us out?
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. God bless you.